The bright morning sun poured through the towering glass walls of the Orion Defense Technology Center as engineers, military officials, and international investors gathered around a mysterious steel container resting in the middle of the exhibition hall. Suddenly, emergency alarms shattered the celebration. Red warning lights flashed across every screen as technicians discovered that an experimental explosive device inside the container had become armed during a demonstration. Panic spread through the crowd. In an awkward attempt to hide her own fear, brilliant CEO Celeste Ashford laughed nervously and joked that if anyone could somehow defuse the bomb, she might as well marry them. The audience forced uneasy smiles, believing no ordinary person could possibly save them. Quietly pushing a cleaning cart nearby was an elderly janitor whose faded uniform attracted no attention at all. No one imagined that the old identification badge hidden beneath his jacket would, within the next hour, silence decorated generals and rewrite everything they believed about heroism. Before this unforgettable story continues, if you believe kindness, humility, and second chances still matter in today's world, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise. Your support allows us to keep bringing you emotional stories that remind us never to judge people by appearances. The elderly janitor was named Warren Hale. To everyone inside the building, he seemed like a quiet man who arrived before sunrise, polished the marble floors, emptied waste bins, and disappeared long before executives finished their meetings. Few people even knew his name. Employees simply nodded politely as they walked past him carrying expensive laptops and polished briefcases. Warren never complained about being invisible. After losing his wife several years earlier, he had chosen a peaceful life where honest work and quiet dignity filled the loneliness that remained inside his heart. Every paycheck helped support his granddaughter, Nora, whose dream was to study engineering one day. As frightened technicians desperately searched for answers, military bomb disposal teams remained trapped outside because the building's emergency lockdown system had automatically sealed every entrance. The armed prototype had been designed to resist electronic interference, making remote deactivation impossible. Every passing second increased the danger. Engineers stared helplessly at complex diagrams flashing across giant monitors, realizing they understood how to build the technology but not how to stop it once its protection system activated unexpectedly. Celeste watched her company's greatest achievement transform into its greatest nightmare. Years of work, billions of dollars in research, and hundreds of careers stood on the edge of disaster. Yet what frightened her most was not losing the company but the possibility that innocent people might never return home to their families. She silently blamed herself for approving a live demonstration despite repeated safety concerns. Looking around the crowded hall, she noticed fear replacing confidence on every face. While everyone argued, Warren quietly observed the blinking sequence reflected across a polished steel panel. Something about the flashing pattern awakened memories he had buried decades earlier. His breathing slowed. His hands remained remarkably steady. Without attracting attention, he walked closer to the sealed container, studying its locking mechanism with calm concentration. Several engineers shouted for him to stay back, assuming the old janitor had wandered too close by accident. Warren simply nodded respectfully and stepped away, but his eyes never left the device. Deep inside his jacket rested an old bronze identification badge that he had not worn publicly for over 30 years. The edges were worn smooth from time, yet the engraved emblem remained unmistakable. It belonged to the legendary Phoenix Ordnance Response Unit, an elite military team so secretive that most younger officers believed it existed only in classified records. Warren had once been one of its youngest bomb disposal specialists, personally responsible for preventing countless wartime catastrophes before quietly retiring after a mission that claimed the lives of his closest friends. Unable to bear the memories, he had hidden his past from the world and chosen a life where nobody expected anything extraordinary from him. As warning sirens echoed once again through the building, one retired general attending the ceremony happened to notice the corner of the old badge beneath Warren's jacket. His expression changed instantly. Without saying a word, he walked toward the elderly janitor, stared at the faded insignia, and slowly raised his hand in a respectful military salute. Other senior officers noticed the gesture and hurried over. Within moments, decorated generals who had commanded thousands of soldiers stood silently before the quiet janitor, their faces filled not with confusion but with profound respect. The bustling exhibition hall fell completely silent as everyone watched powerful military leaders honor the man they had mistaken for an ordinary cleaner. At that unforgettable moment, Celeste realized she knew absolutely nothing about the quiet man who cleaned her office every morning. She had laughed only minutes earlier, believing no one inside the building possessed the skill to save them. Now the highest-ranking officers present looked at Warren Hale as though the fate of every life inside the facility rested in his hands. The frightened crowd waited breathlessly as the elderly janitor slowly reached inside his jacket, wrapped his fingers around the old bronze badge, and took his first determined step toward the armed device. The morning sunlight still streamed through the glass ceiling as complete silence settled over the exhibition hall. Warren Hale walked toward the armed device with calm, measured steps while everyone watched in disbelief. The generals instinctively stepped aside, giving him a clear path. They knew that the bronze badge he carried had once belonged to one of the most elite bomb disposal units ever assembled. Warren no longer looked like an elderly janitor pushing a cleaning cart. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had faced death countless times and survived only because he had learned to remain calm when everyone else panicked. Reaching the steel container, Warren carefully examined every flashing light and every mechanical lock without touching anything. He ignored the frightened voices around him and focused entirely on the rhythm of the device. The sequence reminded him of a military prototype developed decades earlier during a classified mission that had cost him nearly everything. He remembered the terrible day when an explosion claimed the lives of his closest teammates, leaving him the only survivor. That mission had haunted him ever since, convincing him to leave the military forever. He had promised himself never to wear the badge again, yet fate had unexpectedly called him back one final time. CEO Celeste Ashford stood frozen only a few yards away. Shame slowly replaced the pride she had carried throughout her career. Earlier that morning she had joked about someone defusing the bomb, never imagining that the quiet janitor she barely noticed each day possessed a history worthy of national honor. She realized how easily she had judged people by their uniforms instead of their character. Watching Warren work with complete concentration, she silently prayed that the man she had underestimated could somehow save every life inside the building. Warren finally knelt beside the container and studied the internal timer through a narrow inspection panel. Instead of rushing, he closed his eyes for several seconds and listened carefully to the faint mechanical clicks hidden beneath the alarms. Those tiny sounds revealed something the engineers had completely overlooked. The explosive system was not responding to electronic commands anymore because its mechanical backup sequence had activated. The only safe solution required manually resetting a hidden safety lock before disconnecting the firing circuit in exactly the right order. The generals immediately ordered everyone to remain absolutely still. Even experienced military engineers admitted they had never seen anyone recognize such an outdated emergency sequence so quickly. Warren slowly removed a small maintenance screwdriver from his janitor's tool pouch. The simple tool that employees had seen him use every morning to repair broken cabinets and loose door handles suddenly became the most important instrument in the entire building. Every second felt endless. Warren's weathered hands moved with remarkable precision as he carefully released one locking mechanism after another. Sweat rolled down the faces of executives and soldiers alike. Nobody dared speak. Finally, after one last careful adjustment, the flashing red lights suddenly stopped. The loud warning sirens fell silent. A soft green indicator illuminated the control panel, confirming that the device had been completely disarmed. For several moments, nobody moved because they could hardly believe what had just happened. Then the entire hall erupted into applause. Engineers embraced one another. Soldiers saluted. Some employees cried openly with relief. Celeste slowly approached Warren, her eyes filled with gratitude and regret. She realized that the company, the lives inside the building, and perhaps even the future of an entire defense program had been saved by the quiet janitor whose name most employees had never bothered to learn. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, share it with someone who believes true heroes often wear the simplest uniforms, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise so we can continue sharing inspiring stories about courage, kindness, and second chances. Special request, please comment, true heroes never need applause to prove their greatness. As emergency crews finally entered the now-safe building, one senior government official quietly approached Warren carrying a sealed military folder that had remained classified for more than 30 years. Inside was a truth that would not only restore Warren's forgotten honor but also reveal why the nation had been searching for him all along. The bright afternoon sun filled the atrium as the senior government official slowly opened the weathered military folder. Every person in the hall stood in complete silence. Engineers, executives, investors, and decorated generals watched as documents marked classified were carefully placed on the table. The official explained that for more than 30 years the government had believed Warren Hale had disobeyed orders during a dangerous overseas mission. His name had quietly disappeared from military history, and because the operation had remained secret, he had never been allowed to defend himself. Rather than fighting for recognition, Warren had accepted a quiet life, carrying the burden of a false reputation while working honest jobs and raising his granddaughter with dignity. The final report revealed the truth. Warren had not abandoned his team that day. He had chosen to remain behind and manually disable a second explosive device, fully believing he would never survive. His actions had given hundreds of civilians enough time to escape the danger zone. The explosion destroyed all evidence of what had truly happened, and only decades later, after newly declassified satellite records were reviewed, did investigators discover that Warren had actually saved an entire town. The generals lowered their heads in respect, realizing they were standing before a forgotten hero whose courage had protected countless innocent lives. CEO Celeste Ashford could no longer hold back her tears. Earlier that morning she had laughed, believing the quiet janitor was just another invisible employee. Now she understood that the man polishing her office floors each day possessed more courage, honor, and humility than anyone she had ever met. She publicly apologized before every employee, admitting that leadership means seeing the value in people long before the world applauds them. She offered Warren an executive advisory position for safety and crisis management, but he smiled gently and declined. He explained that titles had never defined his worth, and he had already found peace by living a simple life. Instead, Warren asked for only one thing. He requested that the company create scholarships for children of custodians, maintenance workers, veterans, and other overlooked employees who dreamed of becoming engineers, scientists, or leaders. He wanted young people to understand that no honest profession makes a person small and that greatness often begins in the quietest corners of life. Celeste immediately approved the program and named it the Hale Legacy Scholarship, ensuring that generations of students would receive opportunities because one humble janitor chose compassion over recognition. When Warren returned home that evening, his granddaughter Nora rushed into his arms after seeing the news broadcasts. For years she had known him only as her gentle grandfather who fixed broken toys, packed her school lunches, and encouraged her to study hard. Now the entire nation knew him as the forgotten hero who had once saved hundreds of lives and, decades later, had done it again without asking for anything in return. Warren simply smiled and reminded Nora that the greatest reward was not medals or headlines, it was knowing that people would return safely to their families that night. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes real heroes are often the quietest people in the room. Leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise for more inspiring stories about courage, kindness, and second chances. Special request. Please comment. Never judge a person by their job, character is their true uniform. As the golden sunlight faded beyond the city skyline, Warren quietly placed his old bronze badge inside a small wooden box. This time, he did not hide it out of pain but out of peace. He had never needed applause to prove who he was. The badge had silenced generals, but it was his humility that captured every heart. And in the end, the world remembered a timeless truth. The greatest heroes are not always the ones standing on the stage. They are often the ones quietly sweeping the floor while carrying extraordinary stories no one has taken the time to hear.